Howdy YouTube family. It's Bolt CRNA coming to you again with another day's topic. Today we're talking about what the hardest class was for me in CRNA school and what class actually almost failed me out of the program and meant I was not going to become a CRNA. I don't often like to talk about this stuff because it's kind of bad memories, but for you guys, let's get into it. So to be clear here, CRNA school in general is very hard. I'm sure you've gotten that from if you've watched any of my videos. I think the difficulty with CRNA school is because the speed of the information comes at you at such a rapid pace, and you have so many classes all at once that are all difficult like that it becomes overwhelming. It's hard to keep up with all of them. I would say if I was going to talk about my worst semester, that would be my third semester, which is the summer semester of first year, where we just had like 5 really difficult courses, and they were all, smashed together in about 3 months of time instead of 4 months of a normal semester. So it was just like a really intense crunch time. It was the semester right before we started clinicals, so they were really throwing everything at us at the last minute to try and get us prepared to be ready to administer anesthesia and take care of anesthesia cases in the OR the upcoming semester. So that was very, very difficult. A lot of people would say that's what the nightmare semester, and I would agree with them, that was. But if we're going to talk about one single class that I almost failed out of the program because of, that I thought was the hardest to me in retrospect, it would be the Principles of Anesthesia, which that class was actually our second semester of the program. Up until that point, our first semester was nursing theory course, a research course, a statistics course. We had anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, a health and human assessment course, and we also took a chemistry course. All of those courses together, they were hard. There was a lot of studying, they were difficult, but I had a background of information in all those subjects. I wasn't coming into any of those subjects completely caught off guard with no kind of frame of reference for that information. I was just building on information. It was harder information than what I had covered in undergrad, but I had some background in it. And the way that you learn in those courses is pretty normal. It's like you study this material, then you go and take a test on it. As long as you study the material and keep up with the material, you should be fine. That changed in the second semester, in spring semester for me, because they introduced our first true full anesthesia course, which was the Principles of Anesthesia. It's kind of like Anesthesia 101. This was the first one where we got real details about anesthesia, like the anesthesia machine and all the components within it, the different types of circuits for anesthesia, airway assessments for anesthesia, the nervous system and nerve injuries that you need to be careful of, respiratory and cardiac physiology and how it responds to anesthesia. So as I mentioned, I didn't know really, the little bit of information that you may know about this is not enough to actually help you with getting through this. So you're really learning a lot of these concepts from scratch. Like essentially you're becoming an engineer when it's asking you to understand the machine physics and the components down to like the pressure systems within this machine and the regulator valves and safety control valves and all kinds of stuff. You essentially have to be able to deconstruct an entire anesthesia machine and understand which components are which and everything. It's very overwhelming. So to understand all of that on top of all this new kind of anesthesia knowledge that you're having to understand and learn is very complicated. This was also the first class that really kind of taught you to think like a provider, like an anesthesia provider. Before this, I had never had a course where I had to understand things on a level of being the one and only person responsible for something. This was like the first time where suddenly the difficulty level ratcheted up to a notch much higher than normal for me, and I was expected to understand start to finish of a procedure and everything going on in between and how to handle anything coming up. And it was also the first class that really brought in like full CRNA school expectations of studying. Up until this point, I studied Monday through Friday, usually like 10 hours. Whether I was in lecture or studying at home, I probably spent like maybe 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday. So, I mean, it was more than a full-time job. I was very busy throughout first semester, keeping up. And I might study a couple hours on a Saturday, but in general, I took most of Saturday off and all of Sunday off pretty much in first semester. And that was what I thought was like a good work or school life balance. Well, got into second semester and realized really fast that wasn't going to cut it for me. And I didn't realize it, sadly, until the first exam. Now, in CRNA school, most programs have, each course has 3 exams in them, and mine did as well. So you had one exam, usually 6 weeks into the semester, and then you had like a midterm exam, and then you had your final exam. And those 3 exams are the only scores, the only grade you have for that course to determine what your overall grade for that course will be. So if you bomb any one of those, you're in very bad place. I mean, that's not a good place to be if you bomb any of those, because also in CRNA school, most CRNA programs require 80 or higher to be a passing grade. Anything less than an 80 is an F, and you can't make that. I mean, anything less than an 80 means you're out of the program pretty much, and there's no repeating the class, there's no coming back next year and retaking it. You're removed from the program, and pretty much no other program is going to touch you. So the pressure for you to make that 80 or higher in those courses is pretty intense. It means whether you're going to be a CRNA or not. That was the first course that was really hitting us at that level. We had that first exam. The professor had maybe 8 different resources and books listed as recommended for our course. On that first exam, she did not tell us that she was going to add in material that was not talked about in class. It wasn't talked about in lecture. It wasn't in our notes. It was in one of the resources that she told us to have for the course, but she didn't tell us to specifically study that resource for the exam or anything. And I want to say 25 or 30% of her first test was straight information that was never talked about in class, that was right off of this other resource. And I made like a 67 because I didn't study any of that stuff. I didn't know at all what that was. I made like a 67 on that first test. Terrified me. Because if you come in with a 67 on one of your exams like that, and you only have 2 other exams to make up your grade in that class, and that's your full grade is those other 2 exams, and you have to make an 80 or higher, that's terrifying. She warned us that the 3rd exam was cumulative. It was our final, and so the 3rd exam was cumulative of all the material for the whole semester. So she said most people do fairly bad on that last exam, so make sure you do pretty good on the first 2, so you have a cushion so that you can score not as great on the 3rd and still not fail the course. So I was terrified. I ramped up into overdrive mode. I was studying 75, 80 hours a week. Little did I know that was going to become my new normal, for the rest of the program, because that's apparently what CRNA school demands. And at that point, I didn't think it needed that much time, but it does. And so I was studying intensely like that. I managed to make a 94 on the next exam, which was a very difficult exam, and I managed to score one of the top grades in the whole class. That one did pretty well. Then we had to prepare for our final, which I told you was cumulative. She warned everybody it's a really hard one. It was hard. It was a very hard exam, and I remember being very nervous taking it because I knew going in, I had calculated it up. As long as I made above like a 74, I would pass the class with an 80, that I would survive. But as I was taking the exam, I was thinking, I may not make a 74 on this exam, even though I studied for it. Like she was the master of tricky questions. I was in there taking that test and terrified, thinking I'm gonna choose a different career, I guess, when I get out of here. This is not gonna go so well. And I got out and I made like a 78, I think. So I needed a 74 to pass. I made a 78, which gave me an average of like 81 in the class, which meant I passed, but just barely. And that was the closest I ever came to not passing a class. And I had 2 of my friends failed. 2 of my friends failed out of CRNA school in that class. And they, one of them is a nurse and another one of them is a nurse practitioner now. That was the closest I ever got to failing. That was what I would consider my hardest class because of that fact. It's a cautionary tale to you guys who are looking to go to CRNA school. It's no joke. Don't play around. Don't think that you can go in and not be as intensely studying for any single exam, because that can be your one wrong move that means you don't become a CRNA. Well, all right, guys. I want to hear from you guys so far in your educational path. What's been your hardest class? If you're in nursing school, what was your least favorite class in nursing school? I would say in nursing school, my least favorite class was maybe OBGYN. Yep, that was it. That was my very least favorite course, was OB in school. I did not like the clinical rotations for that, and I did not like the academic knowledge for that course. I felt like men were at an automatic disadvantage in that class. It was very annoying. That was the first time in my life I learned what a 28-day cycle was. And I was at 23 and I was like, what the heck are you talking about, a 28-day cycle? And all the ladies already knew what that was. So it was just like you came in disadvantaged as a male in OBGYN class. So yeah, I want to hear from you guys down below. What was your least favorite class? And if you're in CRNA school, what class are you struggling in? Make sure and go over to Instagram, follow me over there. It's Bolt CRNA over there. Of course, you better be smashing that like button and clicking that subscribe button and coming back. I got videos every Monday I post. If you're interested in getting into CRNA school, join up in the memberships tabs over here, and I would love to mentor you. There's multiple levels of mentorship I can offer depending on what level that you want. Whether it's just study guides you need or it's one-on-one mock interviews, I offer that over there. And that is everything. Until next time, guys, that's Bolt out.